Alarming is these counterfeit medications are not just being sold on the internet. They are also making their way into mainstream pharmacies and hospitals. FDA Commissioner Margaret Hamburg says that while the vast majority of our drug supply is safe, there's reason for concern.
We don't really know the full dimensions of the problem, but we do know that in certain countries, somewhere between 30 and 50% of really important drugs for health are in fact counterfeit.
How does all this increase in counterfeit drugs around the world affect the United States?
Just consider that 40% of drugs taken in this country come from other countries. 80% of the active pharmaceutical ingredients in drugs taken in this country actually comes from other countries.
Even if the prescription medications are manufactured in the United States, the raw ingredients often come from overseas, through a complicated web of suppliers and distributors, and are increasingly vulnerable to counterfeiting. That's what happened in 2008 with the blood thinner heparin, which millions of Americans rely on to prevent blood clots. Little did the manufacturer, Baxter International, know that one of the raw ingredients from China was counterfeit. How many people were affected by this?
In this country, a little over 80 people actually died from contaminated heparin.
Baxter says the number of deaths is closer to 4 or 5, but everyone agrees it's difficult to know the exact number. Nurse Colleen Hubley says at her dialysis center in Toledo, Ohio, she saw one patient have cardiac arrest and others with strange symptoms after receiving heparin.
Having hypertension, diarrhea, vomiting. I even had another patient that stated to me, what is going on around here?
Had you ever seen anything like this?
No.
And then she says she saw the same symptoms in her own family. She says her husband Randy and her mother-in-law, both regular users of heparin due to chronic kidney disease, had bad reactions and died within a few days. Baxter, which is being sued by Colleen Hubley and others, disputes that and says the serious underlying medical conditions of her family and patient, quote, much more likely caused their deaths. You lost one of your patients, your mother-in-law, and your husband Randy, within a month or so.
Gone.
Colleen Hubley says she never imagined heparin could be counterfeit. You really counted on that heparin.
Yes,
We
did.
Fine.
And I don't know if in my nursing career I'll ever take anything for granted again.
Baxter's CEO told Congress that he deeply regretted what had happened. The company told us in a letter that the counterfeit ingredients so closely mimicked heparin that it was able to evade the quality control systems and regulatory oversight of more than a dozen companies in nearly a dozen countries. FDA Commissioner Hamburg told us they're still struggling to get to the bottom of it. Do you know who perpetrated this crime with the heparin contamination, or exactly how they did it?
We do not know the answer to that question.
Despite what happened with heparin, most of the ingredients in our medicines today still come from other countries, including China and India, which have notoriously weak regulatory systems. The FDA only inspects about 12% of overseas facilities a year. Everyone's concerned, it's hard to regulate, it's potentially problematic, even deadly. Why does it continue to happen?
I think that we live in a globalized world, and components of all kinds of products are going to come from all over the world.
It's cheaper over there. It's economics.
It is economics for the companies. I do believe that we can do an enormous amount to strengthen the safety of the supply chain.
Drug companies say they already have their own systems in place to protect their supply chains. But they also have to worry about those clandestine labs, like the one we saw in Peru, which are popping up all around the world, according to Pfizer's John Clark.
And if there are no consequences for those doing this, then there's no disincentive not to just go back and do it again once you're caught. I mean, the profit on illegal medicines is just phenomenal.
And catching them isn't easy. At the lab in Peru, police arrested a messenger, but the kingpin of the counterfeit drug operation had slipped away.
What do you think, John? Gonna find this guy? They'll be lucky if they do.
Since our report first aired, all charges against Balbir Bogle were dismissed by a federal New York court in May 2011. The next month, an Illinois jury awarded $625,000 to the estate of a man given contaminated heparin. This was the first verdict from hundreds of pending lawsuits